much as I'd love to go and say that my experiences in Syria and Iraq are completely usable inside of Ukraine, just not the case. So today we're going to take a look at some of the tactics that we had to change, us Iraq and Syria veterans, when we were going to Ukraine. And the first one I have to mention, especially as a guerrilla fighter, is that instead of thinking of ourselves as a hunter, we have to think of ourselves as the target. Air dominance in modern warfare is a very strange thing. Everybody's got it. So whereas us as guerrilla fighters or typical military patrolling the streets of Baghdad, instead of seeking out a target, your mind is overwhelmed by you being the target. The next is overvaluing small unit movement. When I came to Ukraine, my experiences were that movement was an advantage. That was something that you could use against the enemy. Nowadays, in modern warfare, movement is oftentimes a death sentence. If you're outside for more than 5 minutes, something's going to be coming at you. So what I had to learn is that staying put, not moving at all, is sometimes the best answer, especially in a positional defensive attrition war. We didn't have to deal with much artillery back then. Of course, the adversary had mortars and artillery, but they did not use it in the same scale as Ukraine. 17 million shells since the war began. We knew that artillery mattered, but Ukraine showed us that it's the primary killer, not just supporting fire. This is the first time in decades that we've actually seen it in its full potential. Another one is that I had really bad habits coming from Iraq. Of course, we weren't too complacent. We had drones in the sky as well. I was lucky. I had exposure to drones before coming to Ukraine. But for the guys who came from the US military background or such, they had a hard time dealing with the air above them being a threat. It was years of built up bad instincts that Ukraine punished within seconds of them being on the front line. And in Iraq, we had mountains, we had valleys that we could hide under from the drones, from the jets. But Ukraine showed me that we can't trust terrain concealment too much. In all the previous wars I was in, terrain hid us. We had the tunnels, we had the mountains, we had everything. But nowadays, each side of the war in Ukraine have every position marked, and it's pre-designated for a glide bomb to glide in. And of course, I'm a big believer in adapting and improvising, and that should be pretty clear, because in Iraq and Syria, that's what saved us. That's how we fought our war. But at least at this point in the war, Ukraine needs repeatable, proven combat systems, not clever one-offs anymore. Of course, there's room for experimentation, but for the regular drone team, the regular infantry squad, we need proven systems that'll help us on the battlefield. We can't always be experimenting like we were in Iraq and Syria. The next is patrolling timelines. So yeah, patrols were a very normal part of my time in the Middle East. But now patrolling is a designated job in Ukraine, basically. SSO teams, guys that are going into the gray zone, seeking out the enemy or reconnaissance patrols, that is a designated job for a very specialized group of guys. So of course, we're gonna have to do drone recoveries. We're gonna have to go out a couple hundred meters, but your job as an infantryman has changed from patrolling every day to staying in a stagnant position for a couple weeks. It's pretty bare bones what their job is at this point, which was a very big struggle for us Middle East vets going into Ukraine. And the next is underestimating how fast information travels. On any section of the front line, there are dozens of individual FPV teams or drone teams that have sensors that give them live feed of exactly what's going on in the front line. No longer is it the Air Force that you call up or the helicopter that'll come in a couple hours. So there's barely any room between detection and getting targeted. And of course, experience matters. I talk about this on my channel a lot, but adapting is much more important. We had a lot of veterans from the Middle East wars go to Ukraine, including myself, and we had experiences that could help us. But time and time again, I would watch a lot of these veterans come in. They would say, we have to do it this way. This is what kept me alive in this previous war. But the Ukrainian soldiers that I met on the front line, the guys who haven't been in the Middle East, but only in this positional war, they're the ones who are alive. They're the ones who have been on the front line for 100 days plus out of the year. They know what's best. So adaptability, being able to drop your ego, take away your pride, and listen to the guys around you who've been on the front line, that's super important. The next is assuming rear areas are safe. You're fine. You're back at the fob. You can take off your shirt, you can stand outside, work out, do whatever you want. No, not anymore. Ukraine doesn't have a rear area. There's shaheeds everywhere. If you slip up once with what you post online or what you talk about, you'll be punished for it. In Iraq and Syria, we had our time alone. We had our time to decompress, figure everything out. So I know for other veterans as well as myself, that cumulative stress that you get from a front line like Ukraine is trauma-inducing. It's bad. Sometimes you'll be out there for weeks and it's constant artillery barrages. There's no time for you to take a break. It's not until you're 20 kilometers off the front line that you can actually take a sigh of relief. It is unrelenting in modern combat. System level pressure with a couple 15-minute breaks in between. For a week in the front line, about every 30 minutes, you're praying to God that the next mortar shell isn't gonna land in the entrance. You pray to God that that drone that flew over you isn't for you. There's no break. It is so stressful, at least for me. It's sad for all of us legacy infantrymen to go and see what modern combat has become. You could be the most prepared guy with many years of experience, get out there on your first day and get struck by an FPV because the guy on your team doesn't have a shotgun, because your uniform leaked a little bit of thermal and now you got artillery coming on you. As much as we hate to say, wars don't revolve around the infantry anymore. Wars now revolve around sensors, logistics, production, and replacement. not just infantrymen on the battlefield. And the next is assuming that medevacs are fast. Yeah, you're getting a medevac. You're hit. Oh man, we're gonna come in there with 5 Humvees, get you out of there, Casevac. No, that doesn't work anymore. If you bring in a diesel truck with 200,000 miles on it, every grad system, every SPG gunner is gonna try and kill you. Time is of the essence, but if you're injured and there's 5 fiber optic FPVs waiting on the one road that medevac can come down, you're staying there, dude. Like, you're gonna have to figure it out. You're gonna have to crawl your way out. This happens. And of course, there's a bunch of small things too. Poor dispersion habits, ignoring overhead concealment and cover, noise discipline, poor radio complacency. There's a lot of small things, small habits that really make the difference in Ukraine that become pretty clear on your first time in the front line. Standing around vehicles. How many times do we just kind of chill next to our vehicle? Even under drone surveillance, we wouldn't really hide the vehicles too well. And we would stand next to the vehicle. We'd fix your pop tire in the middle of a road. We didn't really care too much. Whereas if you did the same thing in Ukraine, you're donezo. Every vehicle that comes by, it has a strong thermal signature, it's got the headlights on at some points, and there's a lot of cheap munitions that want to destroy you. So that's a bad habit you have to get through. Vehicles are death magnets. Any death imaginable, it's coming at you, and it's seeking you. So yeah, there's tons of different things that we had to go and change up, but these are a couple of them, and it's important to go and say, because I still see a lot of the militaries around the world not adapting and thinking in the past. So I just gotta give my 2 cents. That's what I do here. So I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.